Welcome aboard, folks. I'm Stephen Malkowich, your captain on this adventure called Ship of Fools. I'm a fool. Lucky for you, I'm not sailing solo. Join me and a boatload of people, all just trying to make sense of this crazy world. It's a fabulous mess, and you're invited. I'd like to welcome everybody to Ship of Fools, hosted here by Stephen Malkowich, where wit meets wisdom. Today we are graced by the presence of a special guest, Jason Upton of Aedis Appraisals. And the reason that you came to my attention, Jason, first of all, welcome and thank you for coming. The reason that you came to my attention is I'm probably one of the only, I'm not going to say, I'm in the newspaper business and I shouldn't disparage it, but I do peruse the newspapers, and you were on the front page of the Vancouver Sun last week. And it came to my attention, and it was something that I hadn't thought about because I haven't been in the market for a house and I'm not involved in the real estate market really. But you specialize in appraisals.
I do.
Yeah. And so let's just talk a little bit about your background, Jason, and in the Lower Mainland here, and your role as president. And one of the things that you did do, I'm just sort of encapsulating everything that we're going to talk about. And you did a presentation to the credit unions around the province last fall, and the private property and how uncertainty is hitting the real estate market and values. But let's just talk about your background here. Go ahead.
Well, basically born and raised in Vancouver,
Mm-hmm.
Since age 2 anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up here,
Okay.
went to high school here and went to college here and some university here, all studying in real estate, working for a mentor in the Lower Mainland, and did that for 13 years. And then went on my own with Aedis Appraisals in 2008.
Okay.
So still going strong, and still in Vancouver most of the time.
So you're a local boy. Let's get into the you have been faced because of this, and I'm not going to just talk about Cowichan. It's the whole province that we're talking about here now. It's just not. I think that it never came to the public's attention because every government kept on kicking the can down the road. They failed to deal with the issue. Am I correct in saying that? Or am I wrong?
The one thing I noticed in my research is it definitely spans governments. It's not indicative of one. As far as the kicking can, I think it's more so lately than has been before.
Okay. And why do you think that is? Like, I know that court case was sitting there for quite a while. I didn't even know about it until probably 8 or 9 or 10 months ago. And then the ruling comes out, and without any supporting information, the public panics, right?
Well, the public will freeze.
Mm-hmm. So is the reality that we're dealing with now, that obviously the perception is that properties are properties within that land claim that they're talking about are one thing, but I try to be reasonable the way I'm looking at things. But then on the way over here, my wife tells me that, did you hear about that whatever that didn't get approved for a mortgage because the land was on? Okay, well, that doesn't fit really well with what I was trying to. And I don't want to be a panic monger here, but you made a comment in that article that really jumped out at me, and I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but let's start. Is the public overreacting?
So when you talk about a mortgage being declined and properties being impaired and the panic among the public, we could almost sit here and substitute in a different scenario rather than the Cowichan groups. Say, you're suing me for a property dispute, title, And the judge has found that you're in the right. So if I were to go forward and try to get a mortgage on that property, I'm not going to get it. So we have a title issue here, which is specific. And there's a judgment against the sort of clear title of the properties as it is now. So why would anyone give a mortgage? I mean, you're right. I gave a, a presentation last fall and made it very clear that nobody should be giving a mortgage. And I don't think they needed me to advise them on that, but I did, because this has to get settled. This is a legal matter in court. So, I think we can definitely look at this as a specific case where there's a ruling. Now, it gets a little muddier when you get out of that area that was granted to have a title claim. The yellow or green area where it was asked for but not granted. What happens there? What happens is you radius out of that. And as you said, now we have the whole province. Is it affected? So to some degree, it does have this radial ability to move out. And in fact, it lessens as it gets further out. But again, we could substitute this conversation and say, well, you sued me saying that you had title to my land. A judge agreed, granted that a win for you, but not to some of it. Well, would that be mortgageable?
Yeah.
Probably not either.
Probably not. So explain, and it might seem like a stupid thing, but explain what encumbered means.
Yeah.
Explain that term, because I don't think people there's a lot of people that don't understand what that term means.
I don't understand it, honestly. So we have our land title system, and we learned in school, how indefeasible title, and that you have the bundle of rights, and that you can, sell it, apply for a zoning change, rent it, enjoy it, what have you. And the word title is now coming into question as to how it might look going forward or might change. So in saying that, and I truly believe that this is something that is going to be a reality. I'll make the projection here.
Okay.
That the word title in British Columbia may very well, likely if I had to bet, it'd be different in a few years. Now, whether or not that's going to hurt anybody or hurt values, we can have that conversation. But the idea of title as we know it is changing as we sit here and talk about it, because we already have examples throughout the province where title, I don't know if encumbered's the right word, but it's changing.
Explain the examples.
Yeah. So Haida Gwaii is a good example.
Up north. Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time there.
Okay.
And I love it there and so forth. And I'm actually very actively involved in the real estate market there. And the federal and provincial governments both signed agreements with the Haida. Then this is kind of in some ways the opposite of Cowichan. First of all, there's no lawsuit. Secondly, there's no competing claims. So there's no other nations that are competing for the title there. There's only Haida's been there for time immemorial. Yeah. And sort of everyone's on the same page. It's an agreement. There's no dispute. And that's agreement signed, said, sealed, delivered. And when you talk about what the motivation is of the current government to kick the can or not be as forward with the public, we do get into another tangent. And I can speculate, but I don't know if we will, but I'll say this. I don't think it was communicated really very well.
No, it wasn't.
And I don't disagree with the deal that was made with the Haida Gwaii. In fact, I support them. And I don't think that anyone's going to lose their land either. In fact, I would bet on it. And I know you wanted to talk about that with Cowichan too. Yeah. But the communication's awful. And Haida Gwaii, so we have a situation here where it's 5 million acres.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
And only 5% is privately owned, not even, I think. And all of that territory is going to change in regards to the title. So how does that look? Well, it's not ironed out yet. So over the next couple of years, those details are to be ironed out. So the people at the table who we elect, so we have to trust them to look out for all the interests and make this fair. The provincial government, the federal government, and the Haida, and assumably, this ship has sailed. The agreement has been made that private property rights are, however, to be honored, is what has been already agreed to. I know for a fact there's no rush to steal, I was going to say the word steal, grant that land that's private back to Haida. And so this is already going to affect title. So the title, if you buy a house in Haida Gwaii in 3 years, excuse me, that title is probably going to have something on it that shows that there is an interest by the Haida nation.
Does that in any way, shape, or form, though, devalue the land, or like what? Because I'm that situation I am aware of, but that's not the Lower Mainland of British Columbia. It's not. It
might be a precursor, though.
It could be a precursor, and it would set precedent, right? You could say that.
It will.
So when you're doing appraisals now, how are you dealing with that? Are you putting caveats on that? Are you saying to cover your,
I'm not.
You're not? Are there appraisers that are?
So I've just heard in the recent articles that there are.
Uh-huh.
I think I would need to have a compelling reason for that or instruction from the client for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't generally like to put caveats, disclaimers, and hypothetical conditions on my reports that duck me out of reality.
And your reality is that, there's uncertainty, but the fact is that it is what it is right now.
So I'm an appraiser. My job's to value the property. If you hire me to value that property, I don't care how encumbered it is. Mm-hmm. It could be a nuclear waste site. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you a value because that's what you hired me to do. Mm-hmm. If there's a reason to put it, you call it a caveat, but really it's a disclaimer, condition. If there's a reason to place that on there and you're aware why, and you're aware of the risk by placing that on there, I'll do it. But I believe my job as an appraiser is to give you the real value.
In dealing with financial institutions, which I'm sure you do, what are they, are they bringing that up with you, or is it like when you're dealing with it, like for instance, when you made the presentation to the credit unions, what was the reaction from the crowd?
I used it as an opportunity to educate first for the first half, because myself, I needed to get into this and went back historically into, as you said, the different governments and how they progressed along their terms towards where we are now. And precedents, court precedents, and terms like extinguishment, which the city of Richmond keeps throwing around.
What does that mean?
It means that by colonial power, their rights were gone as soon as the Crown took possession. And it's, in essence, to me, it's a complete and utter waste of time, because there's no way that we're going to rewind all the progress that we've made with land claims and settlements and negotiations and say, oh, you know what? No, we're the Crown. You lost it. It's just not going to happen. And to talk about it now kind of shocked me as I did my research. Mm-hmm. It even sounds bad.
Yeah. The overwhelming theme that keeps on coming here is that it's the whole, and I'm not just, I like to blame the NDP for a lot of problems. Okay. But this has been successive governments, but there's these deals seem to be conducted or talked about, or I'm not even going to say, well, I guess negotiated. They're opaque. They're behind the curtain. We don't hear about it until something happens, or it there's a ruling by a judge, and it's not. Why can't the government just come out and say, okay, we're negotiating?
Because they're playing both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
In my opinion, especially going to the Richmond Town Hall meeting and observing them and listening to them and weighing everything that I know about it and all my research and where things are and how this is going, they like to look like this is being fought. I'm sorry to be frank with you.
What's the gain for doing that?
Well, when you pick a side, it takes conviction. You're going to get blowback and you take a risk. And I think they've already picked their side, and I think it's the right side. But I don't think that they're willing to face that. because they're worried about their prospects. That's
That's all right. You're allowed to have an opinion.
that's my opinion. I could be easily wrong, but this thing needs to be negotiated. All of it needs to be negotiated. We elect and hire politicians to represent us because we're going to work every day 9 to 5 and we're doing our job. Your job is the big stuff. Look after the big stuff for us so that we can have a confidence in the economy and prospects and, a just and safe society. But this is something that should be dealt with, and it should be dealt with right now. And are they negotiating with them right now? They might be. Last I heard directly from Cowichan is we're waiting. So I do think it's a wishy-washy, middle of the fence. I'm not saying they're not doing anything. They could be meeting right now for all I know. But you know what? The longer that it sits, just like you said, the longer there's uncertainty, the longer that it's going to depress and hurt this market because it looks like things are out of control and they could easily be settled, and it should be settled. The courts have now said that it must be settled. Settle it. Like what is the delay right now? We can talk about what that means, by the way, if you want.
Let's talk about it.
Sure.
Talk about it. Talk about what settling means, like what it means.
Compensation.
Yeah, compensation, and that's what I think.
And of course they're entitled to it. The court has said it. The governor at the time that met with the band, a couple hundred years ago, guaranteed it. So do it. Of course it's not the easiest negotiation to take place because there's other nations involved and so forth.
Well, I don't know what negotiations are easy when you're negotiating.
This is what we elect you for. You took the photo opportunities to show where your focus was in having these things resolved. Well, now's the work. So
I want to ask you this, Jason. Is it you do appraisals, obviously? Is it affecting markets? Dictate what things
absolutely is affecting.
Right? They dictate, and perception is people's reality. It really is. But is it? And I know it's almost like the perfect storm right now that we're facing. And I say perfect storm because I don't like it's just a description.
It's a good term.
It is. It's a perfect storm where we've got our economy's not doing well here in British Columbia. We have uncertainty in the market with something that could be dealt with. All of these things come together, and they breed an uncertainty or a perception of uncertainty in the market, which is not good for anyone. And it's not like the real estate market's so great right now. Now, maybe you could make the argument that it was overinflated.
I mean, I'll take what you're saying. I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
It's not good for anyone, but is certainly for sure. Imagine yourself as one of the Cowichan people. Mm-hmm. What kind of attacks or what kind of feelings do you think they're getting right now from?
Oh, a lot of visceral hatred, and it's bad. It's very bad.
It's downright awful. When you think about it, you have to flip your flip your thinking. Anyone who's listening out there, flip your thinking. If you don't agree with any of this, read the court case, read the decision. You may or may not agree with it, but read it and then put yourself in those shoes. And where we're stuck right now in this uncertainty, is it going to hurt a property owner who wants to sell or mortgage? Yeah, but look at all the people that are affected negatively by this sort of abyss we're in. Mm-hmm.
And I know, having dealt with banks many, many times, so they're the only risk they take is really no risk. They do everything to mitigate risk. Do you have any, do the financial institutions, are they actively, I guess I don't know how, the question that I'm asking is, are they actively saying, questioning you? Meaning that when you do an appraisal or you do something, are they going, Jason, are you sure? Are you sure?
I'm not seeing it.
Okay.
So, I do think this is a specific case, but there's going to be more cases, and we both know that. Mm-hmm. So they're not ordering appraisals in this area. If they did, I would, make sure they're aware of the risks. If they wanted to sit down and talk about the risks, I could sit down with them. It's going to be damn hard to sell it if you end up having to force a sale of a property. Someone defaults on a loan. Mm-hmm. That's going to be the biggest risk to them, right?
Yeah.
But if you're wondering if they're freaking out or not, it's not to me. I'm sure they're having in-depth discussions with their lawyers when it comes to the big ones, like, well, big 5 banks. I'm sure they're talking to government too.
Yeah.
So how those conversations go, I'm not privy to, but I'm not seeing any panic yet or at all. And do I foresee it? Not really either. No.
Well, that's the thing that came across when I was reading, was that that's what you were saying, was you don't see the panic. Like, it's just everybody, I get when, and especially in this day and age, but it's always been where people read something and then they, and it's real easy to hate, right? To go, oh, well, it's the
blame.
That's right. It's Cowichan's fault. It's Musqueam's fault. It's everybody's. Well, actually, no, it's not. It's not. The people that we elect, you make an assumption, which, the old saying, when you say you make an ass of you and me, when you make an assumption, and maybe we shouldn't, but at the same time, I honestly, like, I'm a dummy from the prairies. I was shocked that there were no treaties here. And I've lived here for quite a while. I didn't know that. I did not know that. I just thought there was. But evidently there's not.
A lot of work to be done.
A lot of work to be done. And, in plain English, we touched on this a little bit. What does I've spoken with lawyers, but you're right on your boots on the ground dealing with this on a regular basis. In plain English, what does that court ruling actually say? You read the documents, you've done a deep dive in it. What does that?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say did a deep dive. But I definitely read it. Well,
no more than the average person does. I'd say that, because it is your business.
Yeah, they're leaving as this is valid claim. There needs to be negotiation to settle this, and they're leaving it up to the government to do it. So all eyes are pointed to the government to settle the matter. Mm-hmm. Until then, it's going to be totally ambiguous and hard to read and hard to value and hard to judge. But they are saying outright that the title, for now, is potentially invalid because of the fact that this land was promised to be compensated for and it never was. So I can't tell you word by word about the ruling.
No,
I can tell you that it doesn't make it, like, it's not firm. It's not finite. It's saying, get this settled.
Mm-hmm. So, and the thing,
of course, it's being appealed.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that tying it up in the courts for the next 5 to 10 years doesn't serve anybody's purpose either.
Nobody.
And
except, like I said, potentially political.
Yeah, political, and playing both sides against the middle, and trying to extract as much, I guess, value politically as you possibly can, rather than making the decision and just slamming your fist down on the table and saying, look, we have to negotiate, and we're going to start that process. It's going to be done in a fair and open manner. We're going to do this.
It should be done right now. I mean, I'll put myself out there. I'm willing to help.
Yeah. But no, it's, yeah. Eby came out and said, did he come out and say he's going to backstop that land in Richmond? Did he say?
So I believe that there was a guarantee of a backstop. I don't know if it's formalized yet. Uh-huh. That's a must. Like, there's no way that anyone would be able to get a mortgage. You're hearing that the mortgage is still being declined. So clearly it's not in effect yet, at least to anyone's satisfaction. But, you talked about kicking the can. It's kind of more of that. But I get that it's a short-term fix for people who might have immediate woes regarding not being able to mortgage or sell that property. It's probably a half fix, because does that bring the confidence in the buyer? I still don't see that it changes the whole landscape a lot. It's just a Band-Aid. It's probably to some degree needed, but I don't know that it's working yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, we talked a little bit about encumbered property and the meaning for homeowners.
This is unlike a lot of what other encumbered situations or impaired properties or situations. So I sort of got my rise to fame as an appraiser during the leaky condo crisis. So because we were, new appraisers in the 90s, and it was watching it unfold. Mm-hmm. And, we had to pivot. So in some ways, it's a bit like what's happening now, and say, oh, geez, well, we don't just go and start looking at the unit and how many bedrooms and where it is, but it's a bigger issue here. It's like, is this building okay?
Yeah.
So we started trying to dig into what records were available and started there. And then soon the records weren't made available to us. And then we looked at like, what are all the different stages? Like, and how do they affect value? Like, is it value when it starts leaking? Does it hurt the value, or is it when the assessment passes, right? So I took building envelope science. I wanted to educate myself, just like with Cowichan and this Indigenous rights issues. I wanted to educate myself first to understand it and then see how you can apply that. So when it comes to any impaired property, the uncertainty phase is always the worst. When you know it has an impairment, and this it's a title time, probably the worst kind.
Well, I don't think, does it get any worse than that?
I used to think it was structural. This is a new level. So when you have an impairment, the first thing you know is, first thing you want to know is like, what does this mean? And we don't even really know that yet. But again, there's people like myself that I'd buy the property because I know that it's not going to end up getting lost. I mean, I say I know, but
you believe.
I believe. It's a better term. Yeah. So this is an impairment, and we need to have the certainty and the resolution made before it gets out of that. It gets out of that category, and it's it's almost like contaminated land in a way, but it is title, like you said.
It's not the thing. I guess the message here is that legally it's really complicated, but it's not the apocalypse. It's maybe not.
It's a specific case. It's not the apocalypse, and at some point, we might sit here and all these negotiations and agreements will be finished. It's over. Is there going to be lawsuits here and there? Of course, lawsuits will keep people busy until the end of time. But we're looking at something right now that is front and center. And so in some ways, like when I see the media coverage and shocking headlines and shocking predictions, and it's in some ways I think, geez, it's overblown. In other ways, I like it because it's getting the conversation on the table so that people are aware and they can hopefully start educating themselves. And you're doing something here today.
Well, that's the thing is, Jason, the beauty of this podcast is that I call it we call it where wit meets wisdom, but I get to talk to whoever the hell I want to talk to. If I've got some questions, I've had enough legal people that I've spoken to, but the boots on the ground, the people that are actually having to deal with, and you're having to deal with this. This is an issue.
It's an issue. We had an appraisal report in East Richmond. It was neither in the it wasn't in the effective area at all, but they couldn't sell that property because it's so darn close.
Yeah, and close in this case does count in hand grenades.
Yeah, it does.
It does. It radiates out.
Yeah.
So the perception versus the reality, pricing fear. Obviously pricing fear doesn't mean anything if the perception is that that property is real close to where the land that deal was, and you can't get a mortgage.
But there's still a price.
There's still a price.
Cash buyers out there right now.
There's still a price. There's still a price.
And they'll buy it at a certain price.
Yeah. And everything can be sold if the price is right. It doesn't, it's.
And if they buy that, now you have a potential loss.
Yeah.
That can be measured by the seller, and a loss leads to another lawsuit.
Another lawsuit. You said I was looking for that quote before. You said the key isn't what the court did, it's what the public thinks the court did. That's the line that jumped out.
Okay.
That you said that. And I'm hoping they didn't make that quote up.
No, they didn't.
But explain that.
Yeah, that's what we measure. So real estate appraisal is interesting because you look at us as the sort of objective, scientific analyst, not like a realtor. So, we'll come in and get the clipboard out and make the calculations and say, this is what it's worth. But the truth is, the more we number crunch, the more we might deviate from reality because our job is to emulate what would a buyer pay? And that's not always sensible. It's not always reasonable. And even if you make an assumption that a buyer has full information, that may not, that may make it worse. So as an appraiser, we have to back off of our scientific approach somewhat. And then this it almost becomes a little bit of an art because we're emulating a buyer. So if I walk up to a house and the front lawn's a jungle, well, that doesn't mean anything. I can have that cleared up in a day. But the truth is, in reality, it probably might affect the buyer's psyche and what they're willing to pay. So we have to emulate the buyer. So what does a buyer do with a situation like this? It's uncertain. Well, they're going to freeze. They're not going to buy. Your average person, not knowing what's going on, having the time because they're busy working their jobs to understand it all and drill deep. And even if they were, they're not going to get a mortgage. So all this stuff affects the price. So we have to look at how it's affecting the public, because that, in the end of the day, makes our appraisal more accurate, not putting disclaimers in and saying, we pretend this isn't happening. It's happening. And if you want the real value, I'm going to analyze how the public embraces this or looks at this. It doesn't matter. But the truth is, they're not going to pay full pop until it's resolved with any impairment.
So is it true that we're seeing report the values are dropping in certain instances by 40%?
So if you read the article,
is that you got to?
That's my estimation of the impact on value in the land area that was granted as invalid, potentially invalid title. So a black area. That's not across the board by any means. That's just that if you had to sell a property in that area right now
At this moment.
yeah, my estimation is 30 to 40% impairment on market value.
Yeah, you're going to pay for that uncertainty.
Yeah, and you're going to want to profit from it. So, which I did in the leaky condo crisis. I bought buildings that were falling apart because I knew.
Because you knew there's value there. It's just how much what the value is, and if you know the numbers, you know what it is.
So there's people like that.
I got you. I understand. So what we're saying here is that it's the legal risk I guess it's a difficult question to answer. Is it mostly emotion and uncertainty? Is that fair?
There's uncertainty for sure. There's lack of financing for sure. There's the requirement to see it through. So you might be stuck with it because, it may not get resolved for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. So there's risk in regards to your ability to liquidate it. There's risk. As far as the risk to lose it, it's almost nothing.
Say that again.
Nothing.
Everybody listen to that.
Make me famous or bury me. No one's
nothing.
And Cowichan doesn't want that land. When they say it, they're not lying. They don't. What's a settlement look like? A settlement looks like government land and funds. Yeah. Not we're going to take. We talk about government and we talk about the fact that we elect them to do certain things. That would be suicide anyway, even if they thought of it. Yeah.
Because I came out here in the very early 90s from Winnipeg. So I'm a big proponent of the land here. And it's just, and maybe I've got my head up my ass and I don't think properly, but this is probably the Lower Mainland of BC and Vancouver Island are the nicest places in Canada to live. I don't care what anybody says, and I have been across this country, so I always go like the dirt's going to be worth something.
The leaves change so beautifully in Ontario in the fall.
You can have your winter, you can have your crap there, but we've got and the thing is it's lovely here. It's beautiful here. The aesthetics are gorgeous. And I get it that the aesthetics don't make your mortgage payment, but at the same time, it's got intrinsic value, and I've seen it go up, I've seen it go down, but it's going to be worth what it's worth, more so than a piece of property along the Assiniboine River in Winnipeg, which will flood every year, and you're going to get your minus 35 weather and your plus 100 or plus 35 degrees Celsius in the summertime and mosquitoes. This is a desirable place to live. And I'll ask you this question, what would bring confidence back to the market? And I have my own thoughts about this. In your opinion, esteemed opinion, what would bring confidence back to the market here?
Regarding
this whole
Yeah, I understand topic.
Yeah.
Good question. I think that in order for the confidence to come back, the public has to feel like the risk is, like you mentioned, the risk is over. And so there probably should be a statement about how private property won't be affected and how these are the measures we're taking. Who will believe it? You know, or will it be believed? It might take some time.
Mhm.
You know, politicians
And our government has exacerbated this.
You know, have they? Because, you know, most people out there don't feel that they're assured of it. So
it took it, but they've worked it. And by that, I mean, like, I was, when that ruling came down, my expectation was that the provincial government would have said, look, okay, that ruling came down. We're entering into negotiations now with them. And we've opened up negotiations, and we're going to, that would have been something.
Get in front of a camera
and say
with
this.
Cowichan, with the federal government, and with the landowners, and say, we resolved this.
Yeah.
Imagine that shot.
Yeah.
You know, I think that would, and say, you know, this is how we resolved it, and own up to it. But right now, there's heads in the sand, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
And I fear they stay there. But if somebody actually comes out and tries to resolve it and shows people that it's resolved, and
well, I look back, and
there's a mechanism.
Yeah.
Hopefully not another committee.
The land deal, where the airport, where the airport is, and where those all that land there, that's Musqueam land, right? Yeah, I believe it is. Where the outlet mall is. Some is Musqueam land. Now, that deal that was done with the federal government and that wasn't really publicized, was it?
It was publicized after the
fact.
Yeah.
But I'm just, it's anecdotal and it's kind of hearsay because I haphazardly kind of found out about that deal after the fact. But there were some threats that were made and back and forth, and the federal government ended up, and I don't even know, I'd be lying if I said, but whatever, it was 1% or something like that they were giving to Musqueam for that land. But they got a deal done.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's federal land, but it wasn't done, like I found out about it, I don't know how long, I don't know when it actually happened, but I found out about it after. Now, we can debate whether or not we think that was was prudent for the federal government to do that, but they did, and they dealt with it. But that wasn't, that property there wasn't where there, I don't think there's any houses there at all.
Well, it wasn't a big shock, I don't think, because everyone knows that was their ancestral grounds anyway.
Yeah.
And, you know, with the Fraser Arms and all that area around there, and like you said, near the airport. So
it was their land.
It was, and it got resolved. It probably not the biggest crime of the century not to involve the public in it or, you know, advise about it. But I think I know where you're going, is that there wasn't really an explosion about that.
No, there wasn't. And to this day, Jason, I don't think some people don't even know about it. Okay. Now, I'm not suggesting like I'm not saying that I want an extra 1% on my property taxes. I would prefer it to go down and give, you know, like whatever it is, get a deal done. And so that we can.
It's unavoidable anyway.
Yeah.
We're talking about what I said in my presentation, which is my own number crunching. I'm a number cruncher.
Yeah.
200 to 400 billion probably of wealth to be transferred over the next decade.
Mm-hmm.
So you might as well digest it now and consider it's going to come out of your tax dollars or land or both. Mm-hmm. It's probably it's unavoidable. The negotiations should be done expeditiously and efficiently and fairly as possible without writing blank checks, of course.
Mm-hmm. And the so, you know, literally, you know, I'm thinking, you know, you got the city of Kamloops too. Like there's everybody, and I don't blame First Nations for doing this. I really don't, because if I were them, I'd be doing it too. But you open up the can of worms, and you know, you either negotiate, or we're going to resist whatever it is that you're going to do. And we have, you know, at times I wonder what what's happened in this country
When you look at
these 20 years.
Scares or shots across the bow, like you said, if you were in their shoes, you would too. But what does that tell you? It tells you that negotiations are moving.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to go to the courts, and we have to go to the press, and we have to take extra steps. So somebody's dropping the ball.
So, and you have, and we have a provincial government now. We've had multiple provincial governments, but this provincial government we've had for a while now, who just does, I don't, it baffles me. It really does baffle me that they don't, politically, what is there to gain by uncertainty?
So there is something to be gained, and a lot of politicians and political leaders have taken that middle of the fence approach to many situations and administrations, and they are scared to take there's going to be a financial hit they're probably worried about, but that can, if you're a creative deal maker, you can
mitigate it.
You can mitigate that, and you can put it over some time, and you can budget it, right? Everything's about budgeting. Where they tell us to, stay within our budget, they have to too, and they should. But there's a fear, I think, of that financial, but there's also the fear of the media and how it looks on them, and maybe there's just a few seats that are just a few hundred votes either way, and that can cause a difference between ending your career. Look, any politician, I don't care, that doesn't matter what stripe you are, number one concern is being reelected.
100%.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
And
the moment they get elected, they're thinking of
that
being
is
reelected.
on the table. In fact, I would hate to speculate it, but they could be sitting looking at, well, if we do this, I wonder how many seats we lose here if we do that. But, we talked earlier before you started the show about politics. I've been involved in politics. I've been in the back room of politics, and those conversations are unfortunately number one.
So you briefly brought up the leaky condo thing. We got through that. We did. It was shitty, but we did. And that, I'm not going to suggest that pales in comparison to the situation we have right now. But it kind of sort of does, because we're talking about the whole damn province now. We're talking about, and that situation, it was dealt with, and I'm sure that there was a lot of people that didn't appreciate the way it was dealt with, but it was recognized that this had happened, okay? And what are we going to do to make sure that it doesn't happen again?
Well, anyone that suffered a loss is never really truly going to be happy.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of that.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people lost their homes.
But what could we learn from that, though? What can we learn?
There was a commission, actually. I talked about committees and commissions, but there are land claim commissions and so forth, to deal with the negotiations that need to be dealt with. So this is not a sudden thing. What we're dealing with today is just that something's gone off the rails. I'm going to really talk as a bit of a layperson, because I don't know what's happening, behind the scenes, but it tells me that the communication is not going the way it should be. And so all the committees and mechanisms and appointees and people are in place, but for some reason, the ends are not connecting. And so with a leaky condo, this was a new thing, and it's like people could scramble, and it was an engineering challenge, and we could look at building methods, and we can look at warranties, and we can look at, litigation with, builders that were not building properly. But so it's like, this is the problem, and this is our new problem, and this is how we solve it. But this one is not really a new thing. This is already existing, but for some reason it's flared up. So, it's a great question. I just think whoever is supposed to be negotiating should negotiate. I'll just make it very simple.
Mm-hmm.
But we talked about that.
So basically you had said, though, that you're not adding language to your appraisals.
I'm not adding language.
But some appraisers are.
Apparently some are.
Okay.
And I think...
Don't you guys have a meeting and all decide how to do things?
There's going to be... There's likely meetings happening.
Okay.
And likely the meeting head is, our insurance broker. Mm-hmm. So, I sit here and say I'm not using them, but if I'm instructed by my insurance tomorrow, I'm out of work if I don't have insurance.
Yeah.
So if they deem it required, and they tell our Appraisal Institute of Canada, mm-hmm. That this is now a required clause, I'll have to add it. I haven't heard anything at all yet, but it's no doubt it's being talked about. I would love to be part of that too, but there's nothing that's required yet.
Okay. So obviously there is a time though where at what point, have this, it's not perception anymore. It's the proven market impact, and it has to be reflective in the numbers. But you talked specifically about that area in Richmond and how it radiates out from there. But there's no, there is nothing, well, we don't know. Are there any other court cases that we don't know about?
Court cases, no, because they're public.
Yeah.
So that's the good news around once they get to court, we find out what's going on and what the claims are.
So and I've asked this before, but this is one of the things that I want to talk about. Are we overreacting?
But always, though. But that's always.
Right? We're overreacting.
It could be that front lawn that looked like a jungle. It could be the leaky condo, or it could be a title issue. But that's the nature of human behavior. It's unavoidable.
I actually, when I read that article, I actually felt a little bit better. I did, for the first time. No, I did, because it was somebody that was involved, like an appraiser, saying, listen, you know what? I'm not suggesting we shouldn't be concerned, but really I'm not seeing, they're not, and you're right in saying that they're not coming after you. They don't want all your land. But that's right. We need to compensate, and let's negotiate and let's get this settled. But our government won't come out and say, we are negotiating or we're not negotiating. And if we are negotiating, how about we do it in a public?
Unfortunately, the lawsuit's part of the negotiations.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of it. Even the appeal is. Mm-hmm. And it shouldn't be that way. The negotiation should be direct and transparent and not using legal tactics. But that's not reality, is it?
No, it's not. It's not. So bluntly, Jason, are we overreacting?
Yes.
We are.
But people have a right to do what they want with their dollar.
Yeah.
And so if they don't feel confident to make a move or to buy a farmland in Richmond, then they don't have to. Nothing's making them do that. The government's sort of position is to give us all confidence that the economy is going somewhere and that there might actually be appreciation again, and that they'll profit from real estate and from using real estate. And once those terms exist, then the dollars will come back on the table.
Well, from conversations, and I'm kind of wrapping things up here, or attempting to, it was important to hear that you believe we are overreacting, and you really haven't seen much in the market. And if I'm saying something that you're not comfortable with,
yeah, I mean,
like, are you seeing? Are you seeing?
I don't blame anyone for not investing money in farmland in Richmond or in the Lower Mainland or near Riverbank. I mean, I'm not blaming them, because are they overreacting? They're overreacting if they say they think they're going to lose their property. But if they think I'm not going to get a return on this, a reasonable return on this, they may not be overreacting. They may not get one, because mired in lawsuits and claims and taxes, they may not see the return. They may see it better in Dubai. I don't know, and so they have a right to
money will go.
Yeah, so
money will go.
So I guess I'll clarify. The overreaction, no one's losing their property, but the promise and appreciation and splendor of real estate in Lower Mainland that made you admire it from the prairies, it's fading. But that's not an overreaction. It is. It's not providing the opportunity it once did.
Yeah. So if you were to give, some advice, a homeowner or a property owner that's concerned, a buyer wondering if they should avoid an area, what type of advice would you give?
I mean, always look at your options. Mm-hmm. So if you're a seller and you want to sell because you think you're going to lose all your land and you want to live in the mountains or leave the country or what have, if that is going to make you happier, you should do what's going to make you happier. If you're a buyer and you're hesitant, I would want to look at your situation too. And are you able to ride it out would probably be the number one thing I'd ask. You know, like if you can ride this out, you're most assuredly going to profit from it. Now, how long is that? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? It's probably not as long. It's never as long as we think. It's never as bad as we think.
How long, I'm thinking that leaky condo crisis, how long did that go on for?
So it kind of ended when every building that was built during that crummy period in the 90s, late 90s, and some mid 90s too, was fixed or at least reviewed. So it trailed for a good decade,
10 years.
Easy. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, more.
But I'm not saying I forget about it, but that we kind of at the time thought that was the end of the world. And it wasn't, though. This isn't. Right now, though, and this is one of the things that struck me too because of in my limited knowledge of it. It feels like the legal system is speaking one language. Okay. Indigenous communities are speaking another, and the market is speaking differently. And I don't like that. That's why it's really easy to panic when you go, holy shit, how's this going to affect me? I look at it, I'm out in South Surrey, is Semiahmoo First Nation coming after my land? Like, what the hell is going on?
Panic most usually in this case means that you do nothing, rather than dump a property for 20 cents on the dollar. We don't see that. You don't see that.
And that's important to note. That's important to note that the property.
It's not like a stock,
Yeah, it's not going to, it may be worth less. But we had the timing of this coming out in October, excuse me, actually couldn't have been worse for that time to come out. But I don't think that anyone, I say anyone, aside from legal scholars, has gone to like we had back in, I think it was, we released it in January, but it was back in December, we had Thomas Isaac on talking about this. And he was like, he was touting the thing, like negotiate. That's what he does. Like he's a lawyer and he specializes in that. But nobody listens. And I did get, at that time I became aware of the Public Land Use Society too, which has been around now for about 1.5 years. And they, they weren't established to do this. They were talking about public land and people having the ability to access lands, to go hunting, go fishing, all that kind of stuff. And this was becoming a bit of an issue for them. So they decided to create this organization, but then they became this stopgap because there was nothing, this all of a sudden happened with that land ruling, and it came to the forefront, and then they were just sort of thrust in the front of it and going, okay, well, I guess there's really we need to talk about this. And that's what they keep on saying. Let's negotiate. Let's talk about this. But everybody keeps their head in the sand. Even with the Musqueam ruling that came out, that the federal government had cut a deal with the Musqueam Nation, that was released on a Friday, buried in a bunch of stuff so that we wouldn't know.
And again, no reason to panic. I mean, none that I can find at all. It's like they get to be a seat at the table regarding land use changes.
Yeah, that's it.
I have more faith in them for the land use change decision making than I do the other guys, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah, yeah.
It hasn't affected property values, but again, how surreptitiously it's done, and you come back to when you talked about the Musqueam Fraser River situation. How much openness does there need to be? Should there be
when you're negotiating?
Right.
Yeah.
When you're negotiating is a great point too.
Yeah.
But, things should be transparent. Look, I mean, maybe if we're going to conclude this, you said you're trying to wrap it up. I mean, I got all day, but we need transparency probably. So what will make people feel better? Maybe it's another one of these hokey government websites where you can click on what's going on.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not?
Add information, let the public educate itself so it can read about it, what's going on, and make it trustable somehow. and open somehow, because it is our money and it is our situation, and it's everybody's. We're all in this, so maybe that would be a good solution. But there certainly needs to be more communication.
Well, I guess the underlying theme of all this is that it is like I wanted to talk to you because I believe that people are uneducated when it comes to this. We don't necessarily, we skim things. We don't necessarily.
And they have families, and they have jobs,
and
they have tragedies.
That's right. And everybody's got their mind on something else. And there is an expectation that our elected officials are going to look after this. But evidently they haven't. I guess to put it bluntly, from what I'm hearing, nobody's kicking you out of your house tomorrow.
Not a chance.
Not a chance. That's not going to happen.
No, because again, the backstop is the election results.
Yeah.
So that would be the destruction of any political party that would do that, and a reversal, and it would be ugly on top of that. But that is where the system works.
Yeah,
and it does protect us that way, because we do have a right to boot the bums out if when we do it here in this province every once in a while.
And the question is, do we calm down before we do damage we can't undo? And the thing is that like you started talking about the viscerality, or the visceral attitude that is out there towards First Nations,
it came from when I talked to Cowichan tribes, and the communications director, I could sense, was shaking on the phone, and it disturbed me greatly, because I can only imagine
what they've been feeling. Yeah,
and
what they've been feeling, and
that's to me the real, that's to me the real damage that's happening, because as you said, in their shoes, anybody would want to see that settled too.
100%. I appreciate you coming, and I really do, and shedding some light on this from an appraiser's perspective, because it's important, and that's I have the opportunity to do this, and I do it for no other reason that I'm interested. I sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk about this, but I think the public needs to know about it. And the one thing is that I'm authentic in my curiosity.
Yes,
I really am. I want to know. I want to find out about it. And I'm not, and it's easy to point fingers. It's easy to hate. There's a lot of things that are easy in this life, but the things that are worthwhile doing are difficult for a reason. And we have to address this. And I agree. We've had, one part, and I've said this before, my father worked for the Department of Indian Affairs for a number of years. Okay. So I have that background from when I was a kid for the federal government. And I have no visceral hatred whatsoever. I have none. And sometimes I have visceral dislike for our elected officials because of the lack of will to act. But you're right when you made this comment that we can boot the bums out and get someone in there that will actually do something. The unfortunate thing though is that during this, there's a leadership campaign going on for the Conservative Party right now, and there are leadership contenders that are making hay with this.
Yes,
like
of course.
They're just like, and it's and I stress this.
But that's the pendulum effect that we see when there's this inaction.
That's right. And then it swings back really, 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 really
and
hard.
Just hopefully it tempers back a bit.
Yeah. So.
But I see what you're saying too.
Yeah, and Jason, once again, thank you. You're with, and I'll say this correctly,
Aedis
Appraisals. Jason Upton, thank you very much for coming.
Latin for a building of significance.
There you go, building of significance. And I'm glad I'm probably one of the younger people that continue to read a newspaper. And I found out about your,
I'm glad you're doing this. I think that this is really important, because even if just 1,000 or 2,000 people, 5,000 or 500 hear this,
become educated,
think a little bit.
Yeah. Think a little.
and we engage each other a little bit. Obviously, social media, it's the headline. It's like there's no depth anymore. So I'm a big talk
Yep.
radio listener, especially driving around doing appraisals my whole life. I love talk radio because you actually can get into something in an hour, maybe two, and delve deeper.
And it's not just a headline. It's not just something that's going to grab your attention. It's education. If the public actually understood what went on, like, because I didn't even, like, that court case when it came out, I didn't realize that it would until it came out. And you go, okay,
Same.
well, yeah. And well, that's wrong. Okay. But even if they would have come out with that court, with that ruling and said, we've dealt with it, we negotiated this and this is but nobody, why would you do that when you can make political hay out of it? And that's what they
or just scared to take a side.
Yeah.
But there's really no side, is there?
No, there isn't. There isn't.
It's just optics again.
That's right. You're right. It is optics. So anyway, having said that, Jason, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you coming out to the studio here. I'll say, next time, assuming we haven't appraised the studio here at zero, and I don't believe that for 1 second here. I know that we're, we live in one of the most beautiful provinces. We live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. We really do. And we need to get that certainty back in the market. We need to get confidence back in the market. And there's no reason we can't. But I just, I hope it doesn't stay tied up.
We need a vibrant, busy, and dynamic economy.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jason. I appreciate you, man. Thanks
Appreciate
so
it.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You may be asking yourself, what's any of this got to do with me? Absolutely nothing. Until next time.